My name is Aksel Canvanlus. I'm a freelance conference interpreter, a Turkish conference interpreter based in Brussels, Belgium. I was born and raised in Turkey, in the south of the country, in a small town called Iskenderun. It's very close to Syria, so my entire family speaks fluent Arabic. We have, like many other people living in my region, have Arabic origins. So I was brought in a very multilingual family. I don't speak Arabic, unfortunately. Turkish is my mother tongue. But many people in our community speak Arabic, Turkish, French, and other languages. So languages have always been very interesting for me. And since 2010, I've been working as a freelance conference interpreter mainly in Brussels. A Turkish interpreter has access to a lot of different markets actually in Brussels. When you think of Brussels, you may think automatically of the EU institutions. Yes, it is true that the EU is the main interpreting market for a Turkish interpreter living here. But it's not just that. So apart from the European Union institutions, so the European Commission, the European Parliament, and the Council of the European Union, there are other, let's say, spheres that provide opportunities for a Turkish interpreter in Brussels. For instance, there are other international organizations for which you can work as a freelancer, so like NATO or Eurocontrol, or other European associations. Apart from that, you have also a private market here in Belgium. It's not very dynamic, I must admit, for a freelance Turkish interpreter, especially with a retour into English. It's not very dynamic because the bilateral relations between Belgium and Turkey are not very vibrant. There used to be before COVID, a market for French-Turkish interpreters in the bilateral work. So some Turkish ministries visiting Belgian ministries, for instance, that's created some workload for French-Turkish interpreters, but not so much for English-Turkish interpreters, I must admit. So that's another thing. Another area of work that could be interesting is court interpreting and or community interpreting. There are around 250,000 Turkish people living in Belgium. This is a big community. It's around 2% of the entire country, if not more. So this brings with itself a lot of opportunities of court interpreting in the migration services, immigration services, or in custom authorities, at the police, be it the federal police or the local police. So to wrap up, you have the EU, you have international organizations, you have the private markets that is not very dynamic, especially after COVID, and also court and community interpreting.
My name is Figen Doğan. I'm the chief interpreter here. I've been working as a chief interpreter since 2008, but I started working at Eurocontrol long before that, in 1992. At Eurocontrol, we are all recruited in the language service also as translators because we don't have as much job as interpreters. We don't have interpretation days per year to afford to have staff interpreters only. That's why some of our time is dedicated, almost half my time at the moment, I still translate, is dedicated to translation. The other half I spend for my duties as chief interpreter, and I also go on interpreting still. Eurocontrol is the European Agency for the Safety of Air Navigation. Eurocontrol is founded in 1960 by 6 states. Over the years, the membership grew to 41 member states across Europe, and all our EU member states are also members of Eurocontrol. The official languages of Eurocontrol, all the languages of its member states. The working languages of the Eurocontrol agency, which is the working body of Eurocontrol, is French and English. The highest level governing bodies have 12 languages. We are limited to 12 languages because we have only 12 booths. These languages are French, English, Dutch, German, Portuguese, Turkish, Greek, Spanish, Italian. We have a Scandinavian booth where we have Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish on a rotation basis. And we also have a BCSM booth, Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian, and Montenegrin. Turkish is one of the languages because actually Turkey has a large airspace, and its contribution to Eurocontrol budget is quite large as well. It is a big country with a large population, and Turkish delegations usually require interpretation. This is not limited to our large meetings, but there are also requests by Turkey for some smaller bilingual Turkish-English meetings, mainly consecutive interpretation.
Quand j'ai terminé mes études d'interprétariat, j'étais jeune, je ne savais pas exactement quoi faire, si c'était la traduction écrite ou plus l'oral qui m'intéressait. Et puis ensuite, j'ai une amie qui travaillait à l'hôpital qui m'a conseillé et qui m'a expliqué un peu en quoi ça consistait. Ça m'a beaucoup intéressée. Le contact également avec le patient, c'était très intéressant et du coup, voilà, j'ai postulé, j'ai passé les tests et puis j'ai commencé. Franchement, c'est mon métier, j'adore. Ça fait déjà presque 8 ans que je suis ici à l'hôpital. On a eu une formation qui a duré plus ou moins 1 an à raison d'1 fois par mois, qui durait à peu près toute la journée. On était formés en fait voilà, au niveau du vocabulaire et d'autres domaines juridiques, général, la traduction et d'autres choses aussi qu'on nous expliquait. Ce qui se passe, c'est que le médecin explique, donc c'est de l'interprétariat de liaison, je pense, et après nous on explique le reste aux patients. De façon à ce qu'ils puissent comprendre, parce que voilà, on a un public aussi où parfois c'est compliqué, qui comprennent directement ce qui est expliqué, donc on rend en fait le discours un peu plus facile, si vous voulez. Donc le médiateur, son boulot, si on peut dire ça comme ça, c'est de rendre les choses plus claires. Parmi les médiateurs interculturels, c'est vrai qu'ils n'ont pas tous la formation d'interprète. Il y en a certains qui ont étudié les langues, pas spécialement l'interprétariat, mais voilà, les études linguistiques. Il y a pas mal d'assistants sociaux et d'autres domaines aussi, mais ce sont plutôt les personnes qui sont vraiment attirées par le côté social, le côté humain. Et moi également, en fait, ce qui m'a attirée à l'hôpital, c'est ce côté humain, en fait. Bien sûr, la traduction, parce que ce qu'on fait, c'est quand même de l'interprétariat, mais mis à part ça, c'est vraiment le côté humain, le contact avec et le personnel soignant et le patient. Donc le fait de pouvoir aider les deux parties, moi, c'est ça, en fait, qui me rend super heureuse. On est des êtres humains, donc d'office, les émotions sont là. Mais avec l'expérience, on s'adapte. On sait que voilà, on ne peut pas faire plus avec ce patient, on peut faire autant avec tel patient. Il faut gérer. Donc en fait, au début par exemple, je pense que je n'avais pas l'expérience et du coup j'étais un peu trop proche du patient. Mais avec le temps, je me suis rendu compte et c'est ce qu'il faut faire. On n'est pas interprète, donc on n'arrive pas là juste pour traduire. On est là également pour écouter le patient si il a des choses à nous expliquer, mais on n'est pas là pour être l'ami du patient.
Turkish is a language belonging to the Turkic languages family. Turkic languages family comprises of languages such as Azeri, Turkmen, Uyghur, Uzbek, Kazakh. These are languages that are closely related to each other. Turkish is the language, official language, spoken in Turkey and also in northern Cyprus. Turkish is also spoken across Middle East and in the Balkans by ethnic groups. It is also spoken by immigrant groups of Turkish origin, again across Europe and the rest of the world, and also here in Brussels. Modern Turkish is a descendant of Ottoman Turkish. Ottoman Turkish had a lot of influences from Arabic and Persian, a lot of Arabic and Persian vocabulary, and some grammatical forms were absorbed into the language. After the founding of the Republic of Turkey, there was a reform of the language. During the Ottoman Empire, Turkish was written in Arabic script. In 1928, this script was replaced by a slightly modified version of the Latin alphabet. And there was also a reform of Turkish vocabulary to purify Turkish. Like all Turkic languages, Turkish is agglutinative. We express grammatical relations and functions by adding suffixes to stems. There are no prefixes. Rather than prepositions, we use postpositions. And each suffix has an identifiable meaning, and they are placed one after one another, following certain rules. Like nouns, verbs also have suffixes. Verbs that come at the end of the sentence is loaded with information. Verbs agree in case and number. Suffixes at the end of verbs indicate the tense and the mood of a verb, which person it is, whether it is in the affirmative, negation, or question form, whether it is in the active or passive voice, or whether it is the verb of the main clause, or if it is the verb of the subordinate clause. I'd like to say a couple of things about word order because I think it's of particular interest for interpreters who work with Turkish, from or into Turkish. Turkish word order is in the reverse order of other Indo-European languages like French and English. So inevitably this poses a big challenge for the interpreter, and the interpreters working with Turkish has to adopt certain strategies in order to cope with these challenges.
Merhabalar, benim adım Aksel. Brüksel'de olmaktan çok mutluyum. Umarım bir gün siz de Türkçe öğrenirsiniz.